Hey there, and thanks for tuning in to Pastors Unplugged ICT, where two pastors discuss life and ministry unplugged. In other words, what is it like for pastors between two Sundays? I'm John Carmichael, and next to me right here is the cinnamon on top of the bowl of chili of every Bengals fan, Lito Solorio.
I like it. I'll take it. I'm not really excited about this, but I did hear some guys giving away free Bitcoin. I'll be watching for that.
Are you excited about cinnamon on your chili?
Yeah, I love cinnamon. I like cinnamon almost on anything.
Really? I've never had Skyline chili.
You know, funny story. I haven't either. Have you?
What?
You've never heard of Skyline chili?
No. So,
oh my gosh, Andrew, you need to get outside of Derby more.
I'm throwing a bone to our Ohio friends that watch this.
Is there any?
Well, I'm gonna tag them all.
The three of them?
Three of them. But I do have some old Ozark friends from Ohio that are huge Bengals fans that we kind of corresponded during the whole
I have
defeating of the
in-laws
Chiefs game.
in Ohio.
So even though I'm bitter that the Chiefs blew it,
Okay.
I'm happy that the Bengals are in.
So when this airs, it'll be post.
No, well, no, it's tomorrow. It's this Friday.
Oh, you're right. What's your predictions, guys?
So I bet you're wondering, our guest here, or I should say guests, is Mr. Andrew Schwarz. He's executive pastor here at Countryside Christian Church, and we have some of his other friends. If you are a part of the church here at Countryside in Wichita, and you've been in Andrew's office, you would recognize most of these, if not all of these.
The Mount Rushmore of Bobble Heads.
Bobble Heads. They are Andrew's friends.
Yeah, they are. They talk back.
Keep him company in his busy schedule.
I'm a fan of Daniel in the Lion's Den right over there. I mean, he's praying. The lions look more like kitty cats next to him. I like that look. And then you got Martin Luther over here. That's awesome. Mark Lowry, who we said earlier, looks like who?
TJ Lawson, who was a guest on this podcast just about a month ago, a little over a month ago.
And Mark Lowry will be at Countryside.
Yes, he will be at Countryside in
Good
November.
advertising.
Yeah. But
Mark your calendars for November, though. For Mark Lowry.
If you want to know, TJ, what you're going to look like in about 30, 40 years, look at Mark Lowry now.
We just want to see you write some songs, though. So.
We do have some Wichita ones. We have Barry Sanders and Nico Hernandez in the front there. So.
There you go. Oh, yeah. There we go.
Tell me a little bit about Nico Hernandez. I know very little.
I think he went to Wichita North High School, and I think he owns one of the boxing rings here in the Wichita area. And every once in a while, we'll come back and train.
That's
he was
really
an
cool.
Olympic silver medalist, actually, for Team USA a couple of years back. So
I like it. Have you ever thought about, I know there's those websites where you can have an bobblehead made after you. Have you thought about getting one of those?
I actually have one.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, it's locked away.
Oh, because you don't want anyone to touch it or see it? Or what?
See it.
Why?
See it.
Oh.
Is this
It's bad.
pre-2019, Andrew? No, I'm just kidding.
It is.
Well, then we need to get a modern one.
We do. Sometimes bobbleheads are not. I mean, you could look at any of these individuals, and some of them just, it's not a true depiction. And so, I don't think the company did.
I thought Daniel was a lot younger when he was in the Lion's Den, so I think you're right. I don't know if that's true.
Jonah seems a little bit smaller, but as small as he is, it makes sense why he fit in the belly of the fish. So.
This is true. And then Samson.
Look at
It's not just his muscles, but his chin. It's the Jay Leno chin.
Jay Leno chin.
All the strength came from.
He's heavier than any bobblehead I've ever picked up. That's fascinating.
It's all that hair.
It's
Cut that hair
flowing hair. Then he'd be light as a feather.
Yeah.
Light as a feather, Samson.
So we got a lot to cover today.
All right,
so
let's
we're gonna
cover
move on. Bobbleheads. I mean, we can do a whole episode.
We
on
could.
Bobbleheads.
I could bring more in.
Introducing each and every one of them. I mean, he literally came in here with a huge box, just like excited to share his bobblehead stories. With
I want to point out, I think John the Baptist is exactly the same as Samson, except they put hair on his chin. Just want to point that out. Sorry. Carrying his bowl of honey. He's like Winnie the Pooh.
You got the locust too.
That is probably true.
I like that.
But I just want to know what's going on in your guys' life now. What give me some life updates.
Who goes first?
You go, Andrew.
First,
You're the guest.
Our listeners don't really know previously, so you have lots of updates.
I have lots of updates.
But what's going on in your life currently that you'd like to share?
Here in the Wichita area, we run a ministry called Wichita Men's Encounter, and so next weekend, February 18th to the 20th, we'll be gathering 200 plus men from around the greater Wichita area, even reaching out to Dodge City, Kansas, Lamar, Colorado, Independence, Missouri, for a weekend of men just experiencing freedom together. So that's probably my biggest thing on my radar right now.
I love it. That's awesome.
I think I like Encounter. I was in Encounter in Missouri. One thing that Kansas does not offer is a pastor's encounter. So where it doesn't run through Sunday, it's like a Thursday through Saturday.
That's cool.
Just an idea. Just
Good
a
idea.
thought. Just a thought.
Would you come?
Maybe. You're
You're supposed to say yes.
Yes, I would. It just depends on how much work the leader gives me.
Yeah. I'll make you do worship for the event. That's how you guarantee he comes.
It's an idea.
Well, yeah. If you guys want to do some live worship, that'd be. I could swing that.
Actually, we want you to do video worship where you're like children's church, where you're leading us and singing, but all of the background is the video. You're the hype man.
I'm hype man, so I'm just gonna jump up there.
Exactly.
Let's get going, guys. I'll have a sweatband.
Exactly. Let's get spiritual.
Funny story. I actually was looking up Christian aerobics, because I was looking for
I love it.
Christian music. I was Googling Christian music for workouts.
Well, who doesn't?
And good.
Yeah, I don't either.
Pump up Christian music, worship music, because I was going to do a playlist for elliptical.
For sure.
And it came up with Christian aerobics. So I was then put me on a YouTube. I went down a rabbit hole of watching these really cheesy Christian aerobics videos.
Is that on Apple Fitness? We get that free for a year, right?
I guess I didn't know that.
United Healthcare that we're part of. This has nothing to do with it, but it's Apple Fitness is free for a year.
Wow.
How do I send
a little plug for United?
Yeah, United Healthcare.
Well done, United Healthcare.
I need to look into that. Apple Fitness. I need to go watch that. They want me to buy a watch. That's what it is. They have
some of the things. Andrew also has transitioned roles in the last couple months. It's our executive pastor. That's been exciting. It's been new, so he's kind of wearing a different kind of hat. It's more detail oriented than ever before.
Has a bigger logo.
It's a larger logo.
Yeah, that's right. Logo. Literally, he made himself a countryside hat with a 10-inch diameter logo.
It's a large logo.
Yeah, so that's good. I like those. Lito, do you got anything you want to share?
I'm getting ready for preaching teaching conference. I'm excited about that over at Ozark Christian College, and that's been exciting. I was supposed to do it last year, and then COVID hit, so they went all digital, and they shortened up the lineup, so they got moved to this year. But I'm excited about it because just the text itself is going to be a fun text to tackle with, how to show respect to those in authority over you. So, living that out can be easy sometimes and difficult other times. And I think David does a good example of how we can live that out. So we'll be tackling that here in a couple weeks.
I'll be there.
Super excited.
I'll
be there that day. I'm
only
bumming
coming
on
for
Shane
you.
Wood. I don't think he's going to be speaking that day, Shane Wood. It's just...
I think he's doing a workshop, isn't he?
Workshop? Oh, he's not one of the speakers.
He's not.
Oh, okay.
We have Drew
They had to
Sherman.
bump him for you.
Yeah, right. Shane is amazing. I wouldn't let him bump me. I just go, Shane, go ahead. Just you do you. We've got Drew Sherman that's going to be preaching Tuesday morning. We've got Ken Idleman and his wife. They're going to be doing a thing. Jeff Walling. It's a pretty fun lineup of people. I'm excited. I think it's going to be fun, and I'll be there for a few days and then return quickly to go to Israel. So it's kind of a busy 2 weeks for me.
Sweet. Cool. Well, I don't really have a lot of updates from my own personal life, but I did want to. Have you guys been watching the Olympics?
Didn't even know they were going on.
I'm almost in that boat. I knew they were going on. I'm the update guys. I wait till I go to Yahoo News still. I don't know if anybody else uses Yahoo News. And I usually like to just kind of peruse and see if there was anything interesting that took place that I need to watch. So the one thing I know that I have followed on the news with the Olympics was that 5 of these female, long jump skiers ended up getting disqualified for their outfits. They were never disqualified before. The idea is that their outfits were slightly baggy, causing a little bit more airlift so that they would go further. The problem I have with this, as are the 5 athletes that are upset, is that they're we've been competing, we've done all of our preliminary stuff. Not one time did our costumes, outfits, attire come up as an issue. So it's sad that they've worked so hard to get to this moment. Now, once again, that was the information yesterday. I don't know if it's resolved itself, but it sounds like they got disqualified for it. And that's just that's the pits.
I feel like there's a conspiracy against the U.S. team this year. I mean, we're I think as of last night, we're 12th or 13th in medals. So
let's just say COVID really hit us Americans. Maybe there's some truth to that.
COVID-15 hit them.
COVID-15.
So they are not flying further.
Actually, one of our top I was going to say gymnasts, but male figure skaters is out indefinitely because he tested positive. I don't know if they're doing
Test
another
positive
test
for
COVID.
Yeah. See, I thought you were going to say
no
he's tested
symptoms.
positive for
No
like
symptoms,
drugs.
but they do
I thought
daily
it
tests.
was steroids.
No.
I think
Normally,
the only thing you can test positive for is COVID.
yeah, which is funny because it's not a real positive thing.
I only
I
knew
don't
the
know.
Olympics were going on because we're hosting the Youth Horizon Sun Run on Saturday, April 16th, and so they're doing a special discount for runners. Go for gold for $5 off. So that's the only reason.
You probably asked questions. What does this go for gold mean?
I thought they were challenging me to run harder and faster for first place, but
Yes.
There you go.
I mean, that is high,
if I can beat
high
Brandon,
honors. High honors to
is
beat.
Brandon going to register this year?
We still need to register.
Okay.
We will register.
You better type in "go for gold."
Go for gold.
He's over. I'm over 2 against him. So
So we got a lot going on in the world today. I mean,
Sure.
we've got the big game that's coming up. I'm going to test this. I'm going to say,
Tootsie Rolls,
I was told by someone that if you say
Tootsie Rolls,
might get cut off. I looked up so many videos that talked about this
Tootsie Rolls,
and they weren't taken off. I don't think you
So
will.
you're saying on YouTube they have some sort of
streaming, not YouTube, but
Oh.
streaming. And I'm wondering if YouTube has the same thing. Like
it's a trademark phrase.
it's a trademark phrase.
Well, we can't say things like or
Yeah.
or
We just so you know,
Disney.
for legal reasons,
Disney.
we don't own the rights to.
Tootsie Rolls,
You don't own the rights.
We did not design. We did not create the.
Tootsie Rolls,
We decided not to own the rights. Countryside, they offered it to us. We decided to pass.
Yes, we give all credit to the NFL.
Yes,
So
where it's due.
do not take this off YouTube.
You know, I'm surprised that we haven't had more issues. You know, there's been issues in the news lately about all these different teams that are getting, called out for their sports names. But why isn't PETA really attacking the animals in the Super Bowl, like the Bengals or anything else, like the Lions?
point.
Like, you know what? We're tired of the animals being portrayed. Sorry, I'm just on a tangent.
Speaking of though, I think it was leaked that the Washington football team, formerly
Formerly
Yeah,
known
they're
as the
together.
Redskins.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, no,
They-
they're formerly known as the Washington, right? Because then they came out with Washington Commanders.
Commanders.
Commander, yeah.
I don't know. It hasn't been
It's like
officially
3 changes,
hasn't
yeah.
officially announced. So I know it was
I thought
leaked.
it's still Washington.
It was leaked.
I didn't know they finally got a new name.
Commanders is going to be
Supposed to
that
be,
was
yeah.
what was leaked.
Oh, okay.
The Washington Commanders. But
Well, there's nothing like wind surge. Let me just say that.
Hey.
Wichita wind surge. I mean,
I have
if
that
you
ball
were a
at home.
season
I
ticket
was gonna say,
holder,
where's your
you gotta love that name.
Where's your Pegasus or whatever?
It's at
it
home.
is?
It's at home. Wendy is at home. I don't bring her because somebody might steal her.
Wow. Yeah, I have a Bo Jackson autographed ball, and I took it out of my office because I was nervous somebody might take it. I get it.
One more area of discussion I want to talk about before we move on to a little game I have. I was listening to one of my favorite podcasts.
Yeah.
And it's a Love Thy Nerd network. The podcast is
Yeah.
called Church Nerds.
Love it.
They were talking about, with online church and all that's going on. I mean, streaming is a huge thing for churches. It's been since the beginning of the pandemic. Churches just boosted up the access to what they have available online for people that are still at home. But this guy, his name's Bubba. He doesn't attend online church. He attends his own church in person. But his child was sick, so he decided to check out his new Oculus VR and find out if there's any online churches.
Yeah.
He found out that you can do a VR church through Life Church.
Yep, I've heard about it.
And he kind of walked you through the experience. And there's actually greeters, like real people, like avatars,
Yeah.
as greeters to greet you.
Wow.
Then you go into a worship service where people are there.
Have you done it yet?
No. And you have to go. I mean, you have to go on a Sunday morning. So
Oh, you're busy.
You can't do Saturday night?
you want me to do some research this Sunday?
How about I preach
I'd probably
with
do that.
Oculus on? I go, guys, I'm going to preach to you
Yeah.
and look at an entirely digital avatar church.
That's a whole new thing to speaking.
Yes.
When you took speech classes, it was like,
It's
oh,
true.
imagine the whole audience in their underwear or whatever.
Correct.
So can you actually do that now?
I guess you could. You push a button and they're in there.
I never understood that in all my speech classes. Why?
I think the idea is that you put them in that mindset so that you're like, they're more embarrassed than you.
Gotcha, yeah.
So it kind of helps you feel more comfortable. I have never pictured people in their underwear
Never.
while I've preached. I have practiced preaching in front of a mirror or in my office, but not. Sometimes even in the
I look at people's
sanctuary when
foreheads.
it's empty.
It makes
do
you think you're looking. Oh, I just gave away
Oh, you
Was that an
ruined
answer
it.
to
I don't
forget?
make eye contact with people. They think I do. So I apologize. It's
This whole time. I
You
thought
heard
we had-
that here.
I do love you.
Countryside.
And you are important
I
to
thought
me.
we had a
but
genuine friendship.
it's weird for me
until
to
then.
sing and make eye contact with people, but I do
What if somebody's
look.
taller than you?
I do look at people's foreheads right here, and
It's hard to make eye contact when they're so far away from the stage, though. I mean, like I can look around and
well, there's often times when I'm seeing who's here, trying to figure
Yeah.
out who is present.
I do. So every Sunday, I have a kind of a 4-point system where I use anchors in my mind of a person who normally has a cheerful demeanor or somebody I have a relationship with that I trust. It makes me feel more comfortable. So I'm going to reveal a secret. He usually watches. On my left, I actually always look at Scott Wiswell, and then kind of that midsection, I've got a family that I look at because they're always cheerful and they're shouting amen. They're the best. Then over here to the right, I got another family I look at, the Phillips. They're always very positive. Kind of to this right section, I've got Marty Wiltsey, another elder, and then on the far right, I got another elder, Bruce. And they just always have a very, I don't want to say cheerful demeanor when they listen, but they just have a supportive demeanor when I preach. And even when I go places that I'm not familiar with, I kind of quickly find anchor points. I've never shared that publicly.
I do too. I think
Yeah.
so. I have some of the same names too.
Oh yeah, cool. Yeah,
Two different- I also look for people that are sleeping, so I know if I need to change my
that's
rhythm.
I've done that. Yeah.
There was it's too bad we went on desk in front of people because Chris DeWell, if he had a 7 a.m.
Don't hit this
Shake.
mic. I don't want the bubble.
He had a 7 a.m. missions class, Foundations
Yeah.
for Missions.
Yep.
And I had a not roommate, but he was a friend of mine that we sat next to each other every morning, and he would fall asleep all the time.
Oh,
he would
yeah.
like stay up to like 2 in the morning
That's
almost every
not good.
morning, every night. And
Is he in ministry today?
that I don't know. I won't say his
Just-
name either.
Just curious.
But I'll
And that man was Matt Proctor.
I'm gonna I'm gonna Facebook him right after this is over. But like probably 3 occasions he went over to his desk when he was making a point, and he would slam the desk
Yeah.
right on it, and,
Yep.
and he would look at him and go, "Christian." He'd kind of like do the little
So his name was Christian.
no.
I had him at 11:25, end of the day. This is usually the last class at Ozark, or 11, whatever it was. I think it was 11:25. And I will never forget. Nobody really fell asleep at that time of the day. They were just hungry. But he would still slam desks, and he just retired. He's one of the most dynamic communicators. I think everybody that takes his classes, they're like, man, I need to become a missionary. Like,
Yeah.
you feel this deep passion he has for all people groups, and my one story, and then I'll move on. I was going through a hard time in ministry in 2011. Life, just everything was really difficult. I remember I was hosting our services, going out, doing communion and welcoming people in between the preacher and the worship, and just was feeling down. And I remember reflecting, I go, man, I miss Ozark days. I remember going to class and all the professors just lifted you up, and they were just amazing. You go out to lunch with them after class. They cared. And I was feeling isolated. And no joke, this is California. Chris at the time lives out near Joplin, and I'm doing a greeter thing afterwards, meeting people that came to our church that Sunday. And who walks the corner but Chris DeWelt? And I'm like, get out of here. Like, I felt in that moment, God just kind of blessed me. I had no idea he was in town, had no idea he was out there. And we went for coffee the next day, and it just filled my cup.
That's good. That's a good story.
He's working with Mustard Seed, who you guys had on the podcast.
That's right,
yeah.
Seth Phillip.
Seth
Yeah.
Phillip. He's,
Yeah.
Chris is now vice president of Mustard Seed, I think. So.
He does it all. He does that and college press stuff, and he's a busy man, but he's awesome.
So just to quickly segue back to VR Church, we'll talk about this in a later episode. I have this kind of plan to talk about the virtual world, the metaverse, and like ministry, and not necessarily in that realm, but talk about online in
Sure.
general,
For
but
sure.
also including
Yeah.
virtual. So we'll talk about that. That's why I kind of put that in there, that I didn't realize that was a thing until this week, and it makes sense.
Let's try it. Why not? And I'll be the avatar that
If
welcomes
anything, we
people.
can just tour the main camp, Life Church campus.
That's right.
In Tulsa, because that's part of it. You can walk around
It's so cool to me.
the
it's different.
campus. So,
Is it
We
Tulsa
did it-
or Edmond?
well,
Edmond,
that area.
Oklahoma.
Oklahoma.
You're thinking Oklahoma, you said Tulsa. It's Edmond, Oklahoma, I think. It's his main campus.
I don't know.
But
I thought it
that's
was.
close
Probably.
to. That's Oklahoma City, isn't it?
Yeah.
yeah, north
Yeah,
of Oklahoma City.
City.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
I'm not a fan of Oklahoma, so I don't really care.
This guy. I'll tell you this. We did a VR thing a couple of years ago through one of our missions groups, Mid India, where you put on the VR headset, and we did it with our church, and we showed people like what the mission field looked like over there. I mean, if there's any other pastors that are listening, I mean, really, just to show people if they're still at home, a way to kind of get a vibe of what's happening overseas, because most churches have money that supports organizations out there, and you can't always take everybody overseas to see those, but to visually be impacted by it, I mean, that's kind of a cool thing. I'm not, I don't want to downplay it.
I assume it takes a special camera, right?
I'm sure it does.
Because like I was thinking, you're going to Israel, you could give us a...
That's right. I should
And we could use John's VR glasses to see...
Sure. See, let's do that.
Yeah, you got to turn in my receipt for it.
No, the ones you already have.
Just kidding. Just kidding. So we are going to move on. So I got a little game. It is, usually I try to have it themed based on what's kind of going on, but there's so much going on. We have the big game coming up between the Bengals and the Rams. We've got the Olympics. We got Valentine's Day. I didn't really include the Olympics in this trivia. But I did want the title of the trivia, because I'm doing different kinds of styles of questions, is Super Romantic Nacho Bowl Trivia.
So it's a Super Bowl / Valentine's.
So there's some multiple choice questions.
Great.
There are, and then there's also questions where I just say a name of a celebrity or athlete.
And we have to tell you
you
their
have to
partner.
tell me their partner. Or
their love interest.
Their other side of their couple. Yeah.
Okay, I'm ready.
All right. So it's all on this computer, so I'm going to tilt it this way.
All right, tilt it away.
The people watching at home
you can see.
Is it me
if you look
versus
at my
Lito?
computer. It's you versus Lito. So what I'm going to do,
Can I go ahead and just give him the win?
I'm going to give you one at a time.
Let's hear it.
Okay.
Let's hear it.
All right. So first question.
Who's it going to?
It's going to go to Andrew.
Okay, Andrew's
He's our
for A.
guest. If I say just a name, you're going to...
Alphabetical. ANDANT. Got it. Anthony. Got it.
Tom Brady. If I just say a name, you name...
Oh, man. It was in the news because he just retired.
Oh, gosh. I think I know it, but I don't know.
Starts with a G.
3,
Giselle?
2. Oh,
Yes, Giselle!
Good job.
Yeah.
You would have got it.
Thank you,
Good.
Tom
Well
Brady,
done.
for retiring so I could know that name.
Lito.
Yes, I won't know it.
What teams haven't appeared in a single Super Bowl?
Haven't?
Yes, and I'll give you... if you can get two out of the 4.
No
have
hints.
not.
No hints.
If you can get
There's
two...
only
no, I'm
32
just saying,
options.
I'm just saying, if you get 2 out of the 4, there's 4 teams. If you get 2 out of the 4, then I will give it to you.
I'm trying to think of like the
Can I steal it and get a point?
worst teams
If
out
he,
there.
I'll give him... We'll give him...
The Browns.
At some point. Correct? That's one?
Yes.
That's one.
No, I'm done. The Raiders haven't been there in like 20 years, so I know that.
I feel like that was an answer.
2002. No, it was not an answer. I'm just trying to.
I said 2 out of 4, so he got 3
I'm
wrong.
processing
Oh, my goodness.
who.
But we do have a
Can you
time.
tell me what time of the part of the country they're from?
Very simple question.
Let's say the Vikings. No, the Vikings have been in the Super Bowl. Don't.
There's 2 wrong answers so far. If you get 3 wrong...
I did not get a second wrong answer for the Raider one. I was stating what it wasn't. That wasn't a guess. I still got 2 more.
I'm going to have to cut my questions in half now.
Said the Browns. And I'm
You
gonna
can't say them twice.
No. I don't know. Detroit Lions.
Good job!
Yeah!
That's a dinger for you. Because you got it right. Which one is the right? I forget. Oh, yeah, there we go. This is for both of you.
Both of us. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So that round, you guys both got it. All right, next question for Andrew. What team has played in 4 Super Bowls but never held a lead?
You go with my gut and say Buffalo Bills.
That's a good answer, but it's incorrect.
Oh.
Sorry.
Washington.
Do you have an answer?
Washington. Let's just say that.
The correct answer is Minnesota Vikings.
Vikings!
Minnesota Vikings. All right, Lito.
Yes.
This might be a question for you. I don't know. See, how many? It's multiple choice. How many chicken wings do we eat as a nation on Super Bowl Sunday?
It's got to be
on
more.
average.
I eat at least 100 million. So go ahead, read them to me.
30 million, 1.25 billion, 4 million, or 750,000.
Gosh, I want to say billion.
That's an interesting.
What are the two high ones? Billion, and what's the other one?
30 million.
How many people are in America? I gotta think about 300 million. It's the billion number.
1.25. That's correct.
Woo!
It's interesting you get the food question.
I'll get you a food question too.
No, I don't want a food question.
All right, I'll give you. Well, I can't choose what question.
Unless it's how many pieces of broccoli they eat. during
He's
the
like, how many calories are burned on Super Bowl Sunday?
Okay, here you go. No, here's an Andrew question. This is perfect.
Oh,
Good.
You
How
might
many consumed?
eat a veggie tray with ranch. How many calories are in 3 tablespoons of ranch?
Oh, you've got this.
Oh,
I think I know the answer.
I feel like
3
2
tables.
tablespoons is like 200 calories.
Is it
Oh, yeah,
multiple
multiple
choice?
choice. I'll give you multiple
Okay.
choice. Sorry. That's to be
I was
really
gonna
hard.
say it's got to be multiple choice.
65 calories, 127 calories, 218 calories, or 364 calories.
Gosh, those numbers are far too close.
I'm gonna go with the larger of the two. It's gonna be the 218 or the 301. I feel like 2 tablespoons is 200 if I remember back to my fitness pal days. I'm gonna go with the 300 one. So 200.
Oh!
218
200.
calories. Yeah.
Bummer.
You know, I don't know what ranch is made out of. What do you do to make ranch? Is it like a egg base? Like what is
It
it?
is egg based.
It is egg based?
Cohen
Okay.
can't. We try not to. We limit Cohen on.
Oh, okay. That's good
All
to
right,
know.
There you
Lito.
Go ahead.
Mila Kunis.
Ashton Kutcher.
Dang,
Yeah, that was too easy.
you're running away with it. I wouldn't know who that was. I wouldn't know.
I used to
either
have a
way.
crush on her. And I never watched that show, that 70s show.
Andrew?
Never got into it.
David Beckham.
It's a spice.
Yes, it is a spice.
So I'll give you. There's 2 potential answers, so I'll give you either one. I mean, it's the same person,
Oh,
but
was it Posh?
hey,
Yeah.
good
Well done.
job, good job.
Like they
All
call
right,
it
so
Posh.
you had the first question. I'm gonna give you one more question.
What's her real name?
Victoria.
Victoria.
Yeah, and she actually took on his name, so Victoria Beckham.
Good for her. We're proud.
All
It doesn't matter.
That's gonna be a comment.
right.
Somebody's going to be affected by that.
So
I wanted to
Lito-
point out the first wedding I ever did. She didn't take his name. Go ahead. I'm not opposed
Can
to
I go back and say I really do like the state of Oklahoma? I just don't like OU. Sorry.
All right, Andrew. Do you want him to have a food question or a,
Why
or
are
a
you
Super,
letting him
or a
choose?
Super Bowl question?
That's unfair. Just
He's
ask
our
me a
guest.
question.
I mean, it seemed. Well, never mind. I'm not gonna say that. We'll give him a softball. So we'll give him a food one.
oh,
Food
great.
question.
Now I want the Super Bowl one so that I can win with dignity.
I think you're winning. I think you're up at least one.
All right.
You're giggling.
The rest of these are like all about calories and stuff. So,
Oh, yeah.
This is a podcast
Um,
about me. Thanks, John.
all right.
You're the guest.
Here's one. On Super Bowl Sunday, pizza sales increased by A, 15%, B, 28%, C, 40%, or D, 67%.
67%.
Man,
You're right. Wow. That's
good job, guys.
I know food.
That was
That's Super Bowl food.
the super romantic nacho bowl trivia.
Wow. Congratulations on your win.
Thank you. Thank you. Always a pleasure.
I'm really
Always a
amazed.
pleasure.
67% increase on pizza sales.
That
I mean,
doesn't
that's
surprise me.
Yeah.
that's the
To
good
me,
chunk.
pizza is too much of an everyday food.
Yeah,
to-
I wouldn't.
I like.
It's like the one thing I
special
wouldn't
foods.
want.
The two things that I will pretty consistently order on Super Bowl's wings and pizza. So like I had to make the assumption that it's quite, but the downfall.
I just think about all the sides that you have. So typically
True,
you wouldn't
true.
want that main course.
What I do is like even for me, I'll usually just make wings at home on Super Bowl Sunday because I remember one time I ordered wings in advance, hours, like days in advance from Wingstop, and I waited inside. It was right before the Super Bowl. It was like an hour and 30 minutes of
Wow.
waiting, even though I had put in my order.
Nothing worth waiting hour and 30 minutes food wise.
Food wise, yes, I'll agree. I'll give you that.
All right, so something we're going to discuss today. It's not like a heavy topic, really, but what we want to do, we've had some listeners kind of chime in on some things they want us to talk about. They'd like to hear from us. One in particular wanted to know, really, what is the day-to-day role of a pastor? Like, what does your 9 to 5 look like? Or, I mean, in our case, it's a it's a
9 to
lot of
5?
times a 7 to 10.
What's your
10 p.m.
midnight to midnight
7.
look like?
But
I can tell you that 2 a.m. phone call
Yeah.
emergency.
yeah, so we want to give those listeners that, and I think it's something a lot of people have questions about because we get jokes a lot from people saying
That we
what-
work one day a week.
yeah, like
And
what
even
do you
then,
do
we
the
only
rest of the
work
week?
1 hour a week because it's only
Yeah.
service time.
Yeah, so what else do you do the rest of the week? I think Andrew, I inherited it, but he has a sign, a street sign that says
yeah.
only park only on Sundays or something like that, or,
Yeah.
or no parking except Sundays.
Sunday only, yeah.
Sunday only, and so that's in my office right now. I don't have it hung up or anything, but
And I think it probably
I
pertains to
think
each
it's probably
role. I
showing
mean,
it's
certain
fine.
roles look a little different. I don't know if you want me to start or do you have something, because I can start. When I was a children's pastor, it looked very different. I'll never forget. I was going from our outreach pastor role out in California to the children's pastor, and I had at the time my boss, the executive pastor, meet with me and said, "Listen, you are going to have your nights free." And I didn't understand it because I'm thinking, well, the kids are at schools during the school year, and but his context, his comment, he had served as a children's pastor years prior. He says, kids don't call you for counseling. Kids don't reach out to the children's pastor for some of that. So like when you work from whether it's 9 to 5, California sometimes 8 to 4, it's one of those things where you have this time where you're trying to prepare for Sunday or Wednesday night programming, and it all feeds into that. And then I remember in that season of my ministry, it was phenomenal. I had my nights back because as an outreach pastor, sometimes I'd be going to work in the morning, leave for a few hours, hang out with the wife, grab lunch, and then go right back to work from 4 to 8 because I was doing house calls. I would go visit people that had visited our church. So Monday, Tuesday was very busy days for me as an outreach pastor. Wasn't home. Sometimes I'd steal my son and take him with me on those house calls, or sometimes, I didn't even get to say goodnight to him when he went to bed. But that altered when I became a children's pastor. But I'll tell more about a lead pastor. I'll let Andrew share a little bit. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's definitely different. Obviously, coming from the aircraft world, to ministry, making that transition over the last 5 years. I'm one who I try to get as much done as I can on a Monday, so I'm prepared for any fire drills or any pop-ups that happen Tuesday through Friday. Hopefully, leaving Friday as a day to just catch up on anything that I missed over the week. I think there's also it's the unexpected objections. I have a phrase that I like to use, that ministry happens in the interruptions. And some people could take that and like, oh, we're an interruption. No, it's just for me, the type A organized person that I am, I love to have everything scheduled out. And so I just have to tell myself every time there's an interruption to my daily schedule, it's an opportunity for me to potentially do ministry in somebody's life. So I think that's I don't even know the answer to your question, but just trying to get everything done I can on a Monday, being prepared Tuesday through Thursday to kind of have a buffer, and then Friday wrapping up things I missed. So
yeah, so like that saying, ministries and the interruptions. I mean, you could even just say opportunities for ministry. Yeah, opportunity is an interruption.
Yeah.
And I think it's a positive way to look at it. As a worship pastor, I get the same kind of questions that Lito will get because they see us on Sunday mornings. I mean, not everybody just sees us on Sunday mornings, but there are some people that only see us on Sunday mornings. And I think people imagine me as just sitting at my desk with a guitar all day, singing all day, researching music. And honestly, when I have conversations with people about my job, I wish I had more time to focus on the music, focus on the art, the what's happening on a Sunday morning, because there's so much going on in ministry life throughout the week. And me being the creative arts pastor also falls under anything technical that any bugs that need to be fixed, any kind of issues that arise, or videos that need to be edited, or graphics to be made. Though I have assistants with that as well. It kind of falls into that realm. Either I have to do it myself or find someone to help me with that and do that, or kind of. And so there's a lot of that aspect that people don't see.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's happening on the walls of here. And also on Sunday morning, they might just think that everything is just like we buy a package and it just shows up on Sunday morning, But that's not the
we
case.
should make that.
Yeah, we should make that.
Make a lot of money.
I think that's another thing Life Church might offer.
Theirs are free.
Yeah. But anyway, so I mean, there's a lot of day-to-day stuff that, and that's the busy side of it. But then there's also the meeting other people that are in my realm of ministry, especially on the worship team, for an early breakfast to pray with them, or to talk about issues they're having in their life right now and they need prayer for, and accountability. And so that's my side. I want to hear more from you guys. As far as your day-to-day tasks. I don't know how specific people want us to get with this, but
I like specific. I mean, Mondays for me is usually that reflection on what took place on Sunday. There's usually some follow-up with people, prayer needs or concerns. I mean, we had a prayer need a couple weeks ago where a parent is watching their adult child go through some health issues, and they haven't really been back in church in a while. So I called mom and I just said, hey, like, we care about you. We want to pray for your son. What do you need? And just prayer right now. And I said, well, if your son at any time like wants us to hang out with him, pray with him, be there for him, we'll be there in a heartbeat, And I think that's what's interesting about ministry. Andrew goes a lot with me on some of our house calls or hospital visits where somebody is kind of on their deathbed, because that's a tough crossroad, and not just for the person leaving us, but the family that's left behind. And whether I have a relationship with them or Andrew has a relationship with them, or whoever, sometimes I'll grab somebody else to just go with me, because I think the hardest thing for people to comprehend is, and I've done other jobs. I had fast food working jobs. I used to wait tables in college. I used to teach sex ed in Joplin, Missouri. That was interesting. And all of those jobs, they have different stressors. But I will say this about ministry that is unlike any other job I've had. And I think therapists might have something similar. When you go home, it is very difficult to turn off what you experienced that day and just go back into, I'm playing with my kids, I'm hanging out with my wife, because you just had some deep emotional experiences with families that are losing a loved one, someone they care about. A widow who's experiencing her anniversary, her 1-year anniversary. One thing we're trying to do, it's not perfect yet, and we may miss people, but we're trying to just be aware of that widow in our church that's going through a hardship, a year later. Or, this last week we had a lot of driveways and walkways that probably need some shoveling, and us pastors don't know everything, every single house and what needs they have. If they don't have a grandson or a family member to help, shovel out the snow, like, we're not above that. We'll shovel walkways and pathways. Obviously, we need to know about it, and maybe each church has to work at knowing kind of the pulse of its church. But anyways, that's one thing that I think is different than therapists, is they may have a workload, but they have certain parameters that if they run into their, patient, they can say hi, but it needs to be kind of, hey, okay, you go do your thing. It's not the interruption. Where pastors, we wear the hat of a therapist. We wear the hat of, a chaplain walking a family through end time stuff. And it's heavy. I shared this with Andrew and a select few people in our church. My elder board knew, a couple of my elders, I should say, knew, Andrew knew, our front office team knew. We had 2 people pass away back to back, young people in their 40s, this June, I think, if I got my dates right. And I was a mess. One of them passed, and one was hanging on by a thread. And I visited with him. I prayed with him several times, and the parents were very optimistic that he'd pull through. He did not pull through. And the last time I saw him, I hate saying this, I've been around death a lot. I knew he was on his last few days, and I went home. I told everybody, I got to turn off my phone. And I'm going to go home and I'm going to curl up in a ball. It sounds bad, but like, I had to detach for a bit. And I did. I turned off my phone. I ended up sitting there for probably about an hour-ish, more or less. Then I took a nap, and then I woke up and I turned my phone back on. I told my team, if they really, really need me, call my wife. She'll wake me up, because I want to be there if the man had passed. And he hung on for a few other days. And Andrew, walked through that family. He was close with the whole situation too. But I remember feeling obviously overwhelmed, but it's one of those things only pastors kind of comprehend, that I don't want to call it a burden, because I feel built for this. Like, I love walking through life with people on that. And those aren't every day, but they're more often than you'd imagine. And I had probably like 70 plus phone calls, text messages right after them, most of them not necessities to respond to just yet, but trying to find that balance. So for me, Monday is, how's the health of our church doing? Tuesdays, we do a lot of staff meetings. We have a lot of our part-time people on campus, so if we need to kind of do some extra stuff, it's trying to schedule certain meetings with them and make sure we're all on the same page. Wednesdays for me is a sermon prep day. Thursday's a sermon prep day. I'm kind of behind on my sermon prep because I had a broken down truck this morning. I would have been in the coffee shop and then here. But anyway, so you have these days, and then Fridays I try to use as a buffer. It's usually a day off. I try not to think about my sermon. I just let it rest, and I attack it usually Saturday nights, and just kind of look it over, final edits, and sometimes I'll wait for those final edits. Usually at 5 a.m, even on Sunday. I like 5 a.m. It's kind of my sweet spot. We didn't have a prayer meeting this last Sunday because our elders are meeting with some other guys. So I actually slept in. I felt good about my sermon. I slept in until about 7, which I rarely do on a Sunday, and attacked the sermon and went from there. But, what Andrew even said is you do have these moments where I am a person that likes people to plan out certain stuff, on my calendar, because it helps me double check what I'm doing throughout the week to make sure I have enough time to work on a sermon. And I feel bad. I'm a relational guy. I like interruptions, probably less than you do or more than you do. I like them. I welcome them because to me, those are moments like Andrew even described where a ministry happens, and whether it's my staff, but even now I've had to create a sign that says Lito's working on his sermon, try not to knock. And it's hard because I'm like, come on in, but I'm in a rhythm. If I'm in a rhythm writing my sermon, I'm usually reading. I'm looking for ways to help clarify a thought. I'll call other pastors and get their feedback. And those sermon preps can work. They can be 8 hours to 20 hours. It just depends on the week. The Galatians series has been kind of nice. I think each sermon is probably 10 to 12 hours of hardcore work on the text, and then trying to craft it and put it together. And everybody's different with that. I mean, there's seasons where I'm like, I don't know how to preach this, or seasons where it just comes together super quick. And so that varies your hours. And I think most pastors easily are working more than 40 hours because there's so many other things that we do outside of your normal time. This last week, I was very proud of my team. I had a pastor's meeting from Thursday. I think it was Thursday, like 10 to 2. It was such a long Zoom meeting. I don't like long Zoom meetings like that. But we still had a lot of snow on the ground, and our team came out. We closed the office on Wednesday and Thursday. They came out and they cleaned it all up. And it's something we could reach out to the whole church community, go, hey, if you want to come out. But we're trying to be mindful of other people dealing with their own driveways. And so what I'm proud of is we have a team that doesn't look at ministry work as this is your job, this is your job. Each of us say, what can we do to help each other do our ministry? And that's huge. I probably talked far too much, but I kind of wanted it to paint a picture.
Yeah.
And you may have a lot more of your own thoughts in that, or your own journey.
Yeah, I mean, I think it goes back to, and I love what you said about the therapist idea, because I struggle with that. Again, when I would leave aircraft and go home, it was you had thousands of stories that you could talk to about at the dinner table, or as you're watching an evening show, or as you're getting ready for bed. Thousands of stories I could talk to with my wife. And then all of a sudden you transition into ministry, and you try to remember that your spouse also attends that church. Your spouse does life and community with those people as well. So all of a sudden you can't really take those stories home. And so it was almost, for us, it was being intentional about having almost a subject line to talk about to make sure it wasn't talking about church all the time. And so I appreciate what you said about that. I think there's a lot of things that we just, you think, like in aircraft, I was on call from, first shift would get in there between 4 and 5 a.m. So I was on call from 4 a.m. until second shift left at 11 p.m. And so one of the biggest questions I always had is, are you ready to go into ministry where you're going to be on call 24 hours a day? And I was like, well, I was on call 19 hours a day. But there is a difference. There's the 2 a.m. phone calls. There's the 10 p.m. phone calls. When all of a sudden we've got our families around us, and where that's our time to connect with our family. Yeah. But that church member, that church attender, needs you more than ever right now. And so for our spouses and our families to understand that, dad's going to be gone at 10 o'clock. Dad's going to be gone when they wake up to go to school because of a call that needs to be made. Yeah. Just having that grace from our family is what probably is something that is just,
it's huge. It's huge.
I'd love to have spouses on this podcast at some point.
That'd be fun.
We have to be here. Valentine's would have been a good.
Do we have to be here when they're here?
Nah, we'll just give them.
We may not like what they say.
We'll just give them free reign. We'll air without looking.
We did a thing years ago, a pastor's wife retreat back in when I was living at this Christian camp. My dad would cook this amazing brunch for them, and omelet station, and I remember being a little kid, and I was like, wow, we treat them like royalty. And I thought, we need more people to treat our pastors' wives like royalty, because they end up becoming such an extension of us in a variety of ways. I try to be careful what I tell my wife, ministry related, because I don't want to be about gossip and all that. But there'll be people that'll come to her, and I know, Andrew, I've talked to you, and you've had this too, where us, our spouses, somebody will go, oh, I can't believe this happened in the church, or this is going on. And their wives are like, I don't know what you're talking about, because they don't know what they're talking about, because it may be an isolated situation. It may not be, for everybody to know, but because somebody else may know, they assume that we immediately talk to our spouse about that. And part of me does that to keep our spouses protected,
To protect the bride of Christ, too.
to protect the bride of Christ. Yeah. There's also, Andrew and I have heard this term recently from one of the Bettys in our church, but they have a term after Sunday church. They go, we won't have, roast preacher for lunch.
Yeah.
So like, even if you're upset with your pastor, we're not here to complain about him at the lunch table, dinner table, or whatever. And that's kind of been an encouragement to me, because I'm not going to do things the way somebody expects me to, and it could be preferential or whatever. But being mindful of like, hey, we're all humans trying to figure this out together, and trying to make wise decisions. I try to talk to my board, Andrew and even Jon, about certain decisions, to get feedback, to get advice. And we try to make the right decision when we can. We never want to offend someone. So the rule is just talk to your pastor if you have an issue. Get clarity. Don't feel like you have to throw them under the table and have that roast pastor for lunch.
Be curious, not judgmental.
I like that. Be curious. Be curious. Curious George.
Curious George. One other question. I mean, we does anybody anything else to say about that?
Oh, I mean, we could go on for hours probably, but no.
Yeah.
We're good.
So another question, we had a listener or watcher, whichever one. It's at Ginsings is the user.
I know that name. I've seen
Know
that
that name,
before.
yeah.
Yeah.
She asked a question, and the question is for all of us, because we all went to Bible college, went to school for ministry.
You went to Bible college? You did?
To worship, you had to go to Bible college?
Thought you just worship.
She
You
said,
just play the guitar.
"Here's the question: what is one thing you do in your ministry role that you feel your college studies did not prepare you for?"
Oh man,
That's easy. I got one. I always got
I got a
one.
list.
Yeah. One that always comes to mind is, and it comes back to an experience. It was Father's Day. I was holding my son Jericho. I went to a friend's house after church. We had Saturday night service. And I took my phone out of my pocket, set it on the armrest. And you have to understand, this friend's house is like a movie theater room. We were watching Lethal Weapon. I don't know if it was the third or fourth one. And I'm holding my infant boy Jericho at the time, 2012. And he's only like a month old. And my phone is ringing off the hook. But because the movie is so loud, I never hear it. I mean, 30, 40 minutes go by and I find out it's a family in our church. An elder's trying to get a hold of me. The family in our church just lost their 6-year-old son. And we have classes that try to walk you through what it's like to walk through that. You can't teach it. You can only experience it when you're there with somebody who's lost a loved one. And I've lost people before. My grandfather died nearly in front of me, and we were given a mouth-to-mouth for an hour and a half because they were up in the mountains. But that's a whole other story. So like losing somebody who's lived a full, long life, I hate saying it, it's kind of easier. It's like they had a good life. They did what they needed to do in life. But when a 6-year-old boy, Colby Jackson, who every single Father's Day I think about, every single anniversary of his birthday, which was just recent, I write his sisters because I got real close with him. I baptized all of his sisters soon after his passing. But I was there in the hospital with them while they held him for the last few moments. And the dad, who's become a good friend to Paul, had to step out. He was so distraught losing his boy, and he had cancer. I mean, he had some health issues there. But walking with the family through that, and even till this day, that family means the world to me. Those girls are like little sisters or extra daughters to me, and I check up on them. And Lexi is serving faithfully in our youth group back in California. They can't teach you that, and that sticks with me. And when I walked through it, it prepared me for future moments similar to it. But like it's still one of those things where it knocked me on my butt emotionally, spiritually, and just teaching me how was Jesus responding to Mary and Martha when Lazarus died. Like, how do we extend ourselves to be like Christ in those moments? It's really one of the most important things about pastoral care, being there during death.
I think I definitely would agree with that one. I think that one's probably the top of the list. Unfortunately, that was probably the top of my list 5 years ago, and now we've lived through it so much over the last 5 years that it's almost, you know it as well as the back of your hand within reason.
Yeah.
And a negative of that is you almost become immune to it.
Yeah.
And so, I always prepare myself if I'm going to lose a family member, am I going to respond the same way as a pastor, or am I going to respond the same way as a son or a grandson or a brother or whatever that may look like? So that's an issue. I think one that I had, and for me, it was going from Bible college to aircraft and into ministry. I don't know that I would have been ready for it right out of Bible college. Was budgeting. There wasn't, when I was at Ozark, there wasn't a budgeting class, and all of a sudden, you'll go to a church that has $250,000, $1 million, $2 million budget, and you're fresh out of college, and you've got to work that budget as a lead pastor, as an executive pastor, as an associate pastor, or even as a worship pastor. You have your own ministry budget, and you've got to learn to work those numbers. I went into program management in aircraft, so I kind of had a little bit of a, working from a $4 million a month budget. So it made me transition a little bit quicker than I would have. So I think that's one thing. I joked the other day, there's things that when we were clearing off all the sidewalks, I never thought when I was studying hermeneutics that I would need to know the which way the wind was going to blow for the snowblower. A couple weeks ago, I was replacing the wax ring on a toilet. Again, when I was practicing preaching, I didn't think I would need to know how to replace the ring on a toilet. But those are things we still do in ministry that probably some people don't know that we do day to day, is replacing the wax ring. So if you ever have a toilet problem here at Countryside, let one of these guys know and they will take care of it.
We're ready. What's a wax ring? Oh, yeah, I'll tell you that first year in ministry, I was 18 years old, and I think I had a $400 or $500 budget. It was a small church. And then like 2 years later, I'm in charge of a $5,000 budget. And a few years later, it was a $20,000 budget, $150,000 budget. And I remember every time I was like, oh my gosh, this is just insane. The money that you're working with, and you have to do due diligence. I had a church member. This isn't knocking any ministry. We had an event recently, and it was an outreach event where a faith and family night here locally. And we were asked, do you want to sponsor this event? And you can make a commercial or do this other stuff. And somebody asked me at the event, there was a commercial playing from another church, big church. They probably have a lot more resources than we do in that regard. And a church member leaned in and says, why didn't we make a commercial? And I said, well, you pay money, like it costs money. And I said, in the end of the day, Andrew and I had a discussion. We can go to this event where it cost us $12 a ticket. We could just attend. Or we can pay a little extra and get our name on the lights and do all that. I didn't want to pay it. We made a decision. I told that church member, I said, well, it costs money, and we could have. I don't want to. I'd rather the money go somewhere else in regards to ministry. Once again, those monies, we spend some time. Christmas comes, we make cards or whatever. But, church, if you're watching, the best way to advertise your church is word of mouth. So you could save us a lot of money by just inviting a friend. But it's that concept, too, when you talk about that budgeting. You don't talk about that in college so much. That sometimes a screen, I have a church friend out in California, they had to spend $100,000 to replace a broken screen for doing all their projecting and stuff. This was going back many years now. And I remember a friend from college was offended. How can we spend that kind of money and, not send money to the orphanage or this or that? Well, they're doing that too. It's not like, oh, we had a choice, $100,000 screen or the kids at the orphanage. Like, that's not the concept.
I think we would much rather spend
100%.
I would much rather spend that than spending, $20,000 on an air conditioning unit.
100%. But then there are some kind of necessities that exist because, we do want the heating to work when it's cold in the worship center, or the AC in the summer. But those are just little things I think that you just don't know about in college. And I don't know if it's not that they aren't willing to teach you. It's just sometimes it just doesn't come up,
I think it is subject matter too. I mean, we're not everybody that goes through Ozark is going to experience a budget that way.
Correct.
Or, and maybe not everybody that's at Ozark is going to experience deathbed, conversations. So,
if you're doing youth ministry, the probability of your teenagers dying is a lot smaller than somebody who's working with your senior saints. Like, seriously.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. For me, I think some of the stuff you guys mentioned, but I think being in worship ministry, I think it's the same with preaching ministry too. But I think it's, and I don't mean this in a negative way, but kind of growing a thicker skin.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're not really prepared for the words that you'll hear spoken towards you.
Mm-hmm.
For people that disagree with your methodology or your tactics of ministry, and
I kind of want us to share like the worst thing somebody said about us.
but one thing I think on the positive side of that, I think what ministry has taught me that college didn't teach me was to love people through that and where they're at and see through their words and kind of try to understand their heart behind it. And just like you mentioned before this question, it means it's so much more efficient to come talk to us about.
For sure.
There was a church member here that has since passed, but I'd hear hubbubs of people, I don't want to use the complaint, but have issues with my style of leading worship. And he was the first one that came and spoke to me in person, and it started off a little heated, but then he became very, very loving in his mannerisms and said, "I really want you to be successful in your ministry. I want this church the kingdom of God to grow, and you're a part of that." And he's very encouraged. It turned out being very encouraging. Yeah. And when I told him my heart behind it, we had like this mutual, like, hey, we're on the same page of what we want, what direction we want the church to go. And so because of this person, before that, I don't know if I would have that initial reaction to everybody. But now in my mind, when I hear someone say something to me, or I hear somebody else report that somebody said something about the worship service, my initial thought is to go back to this discussion with this person and say, that person probably just needs to come have a conversation, or I need to have a conversation with that person. And once we understand each other's hearts and our heart for the growth of the kingdom of God, I think that's much more efficient than but ministry has helped me not take those things as personal. And I don't think anybody's complaints are personal. I think they're people have grown up with I grew up with certain styles of music. It's a heart. It's a music attached to your heart.
We had my mentor was really good to me in California, lead pastor, because there would be a letter sent to him about me and my style, which I get it. It's different than, and I like being different. I don't want to sound like Francis Chan or other Billy Graham. I love Billy Graham. I love Francis Chan, but let Francis Chan and Billy Graham be them, and then I'll be Lito. And he had shared some of the criticism from somebody, but he didn't read the whole letter to me. He definitely softened the blow, and he says, sometimes, he says, one day you'll be a lead pastor, and you're going to get this stuff unfiltered. He says, the reason I'm telling you this exists is that this will always exist. His phrase he learned from a guy named Ken Idleman, who was the president of Ozark back in the day, was, the dog barks, but the caravan moves on. And the intent of that thing is people will complain, but it is our job to keep that caravan moving, to preach the gospel, to seek and save the lost, to disciple his kingdom workers. And if we get distracted by the barking dog, that caravan's going to stop, but it's got to keep moving. And I love that illustration, and I don't know why. I have a lot of. Dave Rutherford was the type of mentor where he didn't know he was teaching me stuff. He would just be talking, and I just felt like I was like, oh, this is good, this is golden. I want to take notes to everything you say, and a lot of it's retained in my heart because it meant something. And with these guys, I joked about us sharing the complaints, but like the encouragement I get as a lead pastor is when somebody comes to me and says, I am so glad you hired Andrew. I'm so glad that John's leading worship. His heart is on point. Hey, when you're not in the pulpit, man, Andrew's doing such an amazing job where you can feel like you can take a Sunday off and feel that an excellent communicator is behind the pulpit. And I know even John, he was visiting family, and a crazy storm came in this last January. So he already knew he wasn't going to be doing worship that Sunday. He had somebody else doing it. But it was awesome for him to spend more time with family and then come back when the storm kind of settled down, but have confidence in his team and what they were doing. And once again, it takes time, effort, and focus for all of us to get to a place like that. And our desire is for Countryside to grow with more people coming to know Jesus, but also growing in their faith. And I do think numerically, sometimes we say, oh, it's not about the numbers, but we do want to see more people come to know Jesus. You know, we do want to see those people get deeper in their faith. There is a growth that we want to see take place. And I'm grateful for the team we have.
And I think just to tag on that a little bit is the message can't change.
100%. Methods can, message doesn't.
You look at Jesus, there was times that he preached to a crowd of 5,000 plus, but there was also times where he would preach to a couple soldiers or a couple women.
Yeah.
And the message never changed no matter the crowd, no matter the audience. So.
Yeah, I love that. Right on.
That's good. Well, for some take-home stuff, what do you guys want to share with our because we're just three pastors at a church, and we have our own roles and our own day-to-day things. And I think what we come to the conclusion is, we do this for the kingdom of God. We do it because we love the Lord. We love, but it doesn't mean that we are more special.
Sure.
We everybody has that same opportunity day to day to serve the Lord through their work. When you work aircraft, I know your heart. I know you are doing it as to the Lord, because you love what Christ has offered us at the cross and through the resurrection, the life He's given, and you want that to be spread out to the world, to the end of the earth, to your coworkers, to your. And I want to read from Colossians 3:23-24. Many of our listeners will be familiar with this, but it says, "Work willingly." This is the New Living Translation. "Work willingly at whatever you do, as though you were working for the Lord rather than for people. Remember that the Lord will give you an inheritance as your reward, and that the master you are serving is Christ." So that's no matter what role you're in. We happen to be working in a church environment, but our role isn't any more important than the guy that works at Spirit, or the guy that works at works on base in the Connell Air Force Base.
For sure.
And so, or girl, I said guys, but whatever.
Airmen and
women. But what do you guys have to add about that?
I got something, but I'll let you go first.
I think no matter where you're at, is you can be more like Jesus. I agree. In aircraft, there's so many opportunities that I had come up where I had the opportunity to put on the best Christian front to people who were hurting, people who didn't want anything to do with Jesus in their life. And so it's choosing every day to take advantage of those opportunities. And I think it's also as an individual review, when you get to the end of your day, to look back over the course of your day and say, what could I have done better for Christ? What could I have done better for the church? Wherever you were at, whether you're at the superstore or whether you were on, a busy interstate, how did you respond to that car next to you? Or how did you respond to your kids? How did you respond to your parents? And taking a chance to look and say, how can I make tomorrow better than I did today? So,
for me, one thing that I love about the body of believers is that how I look at people is we're all ambassadors for Christ. So while we're serving in our pockets all over the city of Wichita, Rose Hill, Derby, Andover, wherever, even some church members that are truck drivers across the country, I'll get messages from them. Hey, Lito, I finally listened to Sunday's sermon or whatever. What I like is that we do all these things, that the body of Christ goes out and we are the church in our communities. And then that time we come together Sunday, I think of it like a Star Wars movie, and here's why. There is scenes in the Star Wars films. Let's take the first film, where you have, the farm boy, you have Han Solo and Chewie, and you got Obi-Wan over here, and they're all doing they're setting up the scene, and then there's a point where they all come together. And when they're all together, it's like that's the most exciting part of the movie. They're in a trash compactor together. They're trying to, turn off the power to the power generator holding the Millennium Falcon and the Death Star. If you don't know these films, this makes no sense. But it's those scenes where they're all together. That's where it's exciting. That's when stuff happens. For me, Sunday morning, when we all get together as a body of believers, we've got our tech team and we've got our children's team and we got the worship team and everybody coming together. I kind of, I've mentioned this to our staff, is like we're all getting ready for Sunday, and having these moments where we've got to be so prepared, where we kind of know our starts and stops. I got to come there and make sure I've done my due diligence with the sermon. John's got the worship, and we got other tech people that are working on things, children's team working on things. All of this amazing stuff happens on Sunday, and it's exciting. It's my favorite day of the week. It's been like that for years.
Our Super Bowl
It's our Super Bowl
every Sunday.
every Sunday, and I love it. And even when I visit churches and I get to check out another church or a team, it excites me because I'm like, man, look at all the work that these people are putting in to make kingdom impact. I had a pastor, say mentor of mine in California, who said, it's hard because you're spending this time and energy to make a sermon work, and there are distractions in a service. It could be a cell phone or a baby crying, and we love babies, but it can be a distraction. And he was telling me, I've only got this 30 or sometimes 45-minute timeline to really preach the gospel. And I want the Holy Spirit to speak to the people so that they would turn their hearts to God. Because some people in the church, that's the only time they're spending in the Word. It's the only time that they're hearing God's Word. They're hearing a sermon. I mean, Andrew and I, and I'm sure a lot of other preachers out there, we like sermons, so we'll listen to sermons. I listen to sermons all week long, and it fills my cup. I've got a sermon I have to listen to today from Ozarks Chapel yesterday. They did this, kind of a spouse tag team sermon, and I'm really excited. I texted the couple right before the storms and said, hey, I'm praying for you guys. I know you guys are going to kill it, and I'm looking forward to listening to today. It's on my to-do list. Sometimes I'll run errands, and I just turn on that sermon, and that fills my cup, because even this preacher needs to have a sermon preached to him. So...
to kind of wrap it up, I often tell people that, and it's true. I've even had long discussions with my wife about it in the past, but I'm actually kind of jealous of those who work outside of the church because of the opportunities they have to reach people that aren't part of the church. And when we're here and we're kind of consumed with discipling believers, which is a joy. It is a joy. It's sometimes I feel like I'm missing out. And not that we can still create those opportunities as pastors. I mean, outside of these walls, we still try to do that as often as possible. But you have that 8 hours a day with those coworkers to really make an impact. And I just, my prayer is that you are being intentional about that, and that to make we talk about the one here at the church at Countryside, and that's the one person in your life that you're praying for that don't know who Christ is, and you're really the only outlet to Christ that they have. And so we encourage you to identify the person in your workplace or your neighborhood, really be intentional about reaching them from Christ and impacting their life in a way that points them to Jesus. So just some recommendations for our listeners, for our watchers.
Pop culture, the Book of Boba Fett. If you're the Star Wars fans out there, it would be healthy for you to watch The Mandalorian. I've got some friends that have never really tried Star Wars, just so you know, Andrew. And their families are digging it. And so I would encourage you kind of have to watch Mandalorian.
If you like Westerns.
1 and 2. Yeah, Boba Fett has this Western vibe. Yeah. It's phenomenal. Today is the last episode.
Both your favorite genres, science fiction and Western.
So that's my recommendation. As for some other books and reading, or even teaching, I will say Preaching Teaching is offering a digital portion, so you can get all of the sermons that we'll be preaching here in a couple weeks. It's February 21st. Well, that's the banquet, but really the sermons start on the 22nd to the 24th is the final one. 23rd? 22nd, 23rd. Yes. Thank you. You know better than I. I just leave on the 24th because the last session's late at night. So I would tell you, if you're interested in that, I'll put a link and you can register for it. I mean, I won't put a link, but there's probably one right here because John was awesome enough to put a link for
It'll be in the description.
So. Yeah, there you go.
There you go. It says Lito, Jon, Andrew.
Oh, okay, yeah.
You mean to go? I can go.
It's fine. I got a Super Bowl food. Something I'm making for our life group for Super Bowl is you get some little Smokies, wrap them in bacon, some brown sugar, and I actually have this like Trader Joe's.
So I'm coming to your house.
Coffee rub. It's like a coffee. It's got some coffee grinds in it. So it's like instant coffee, but it's really, really good. I sprinkle that on there. Some paprika.
There's coffee in this.
And put that in the oven, 375 until they look brown and crispy.
What time?
I'll be there. But that's a recommendation. Bacon wrapped little Smokies with some brown sugar and whatever spices you want to put on there you think sound good. So
I'll leave you with a book. It's by a guy who's in the country music. I guess it's pop culture, maybe. I guess called Bobby Bones. He does a radio show, but it's a book called "Fail Until You Don't." Fail until you don't. So just continuing every day to fight, grind, and repeat. If you don't like reading things outside of the Christian genre, You may not like it, so I'll give you a book. It's a Tim Harlow.
Yep.
It's an Ozark book.
Yep.
What Made Jesus Mad by Tim Harlow. Highly recommend that one. It will open up your eyes to probably some of your preferences, your opinions that happen in everyday church, because he really just looks at the red letter texts of the New Testament. So
Yeah, that's great. Well, as always, subscribe, like, share this podcast with friends and family on your social media platform, through email, however you want to do it. We just text messages, text your buddies, say, hey, go to this podcast or go to this YouTube video and check out these guys. And sometimes girls, we will have one someday. My wife will be on this show. Man, we're in trouble.
I ain't in trouble. I didn't say nothing. I didn't say anything. I love my wife. I know you love your wife.
Yeah, I love my wife.
here, let's. Are we here?
God bless you guys. Have a great one. Thank you, Andrew.
See you guys.
Buy me some peanuts and crack a jack. I don't care if I ever get back.
I don't know about that. Keep going.
Root for the home.